Well, hello and welcome to the latest episode of the About Small Business podcast. My name's Barry McDermott. If you're enjoying what you're watching, enjoying the content that we're producing, please can you consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the little notification bell. That's going to let you know anytime a new podcast is going to drop. Now, in this episode, I'm going to be chatting to Richard Wade from Risk and Safety Compliance Services. Richard, thank you very much for joining me.
Morning, Barry.
It's a bit of a mouthful to get through. Can you just give us a quick brief outline of what services you are offering?
Indeed. So, Risk and Safety Compliance Services. It's a little business, and we offer risk management and health and safety advice with a bit of a niche. We specialise in heavy engineering,
Right.
and unusually farming and agriculture and landed estates. So it's health and safety, but not the run-of-the-mill health and safety.
Right, because the other thing I've seen on your website, you advertise sort of crime prevention as well.
Yeah.
And is that sort of all under that same umbrella?
It's all under the same banner. So the crime prevention, that's a major project that we've had going now for the best part of a year, and it's something of real interest to me, and something you'll hear a great deal more about going forward, because we've got a new website launching and we've got brand new courses launching. So there's a lot going on in the crime field at the moment.
Right. So that seems quite a broad project you've got going on there.
It's an interesting one. The reason it kicked off, it kind of goes back to my days working in risk and safety, but as part of an insurance broker. It's a local company, brilliant setup here based in Newcastle, and offices throughout the UK. But so I was there in a risk and safety capacity, but I was closely working alongside all of the brokers. And most of the client base of the company were agriculture, farms, castles, landed estates, that kind of stuff. And so, although it wasn't directly my sort of business, I heard what was going on.
Yeah.
And on a regular basis, there was crime, theft, break-ins, machinery, all this. And I got a real interest in rural crime. And that kind of carried on long after I left that organisation, to the point now where I'm making it part of my life's work now to focus on rural crime, but more importantly, crime prevention. And we're developing and have developed training courses and tools.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Listening to you talking, just to hear a genuine enthusiasm for what might, dare I say it to the uneducated on that topic, seem relatively mundane. I mean, you're talking.
Right.
You've come from an insurance background, and as I say, it's quite unusual to sort of get this, because I mean, you came in, you're quite an enthusiastic guy, sort of first time we've met, and no, but I mean, you've got a spring in your step about this, and just talking about, I can hear that it's just quite fascinating. So I mean, your background is in insurance. If we can go back a little bit further,
Sure.
Sort of to let's take it back to school days. I mean, I've said this to many people, and I think it is the way of the world.
Yeah.
Much of what we end up doing isn't what we dreamed about or dreamt about when we were at school. And I mean, I don't know, maybe you did sort of dream that you'd be in this kind of field when you were older. No. What were your early ambitions sort of when you were at school?
Well, it's interesting. So first of all, I had a great time at school. School for me was good. It was good fun.
Were you academic?
Kind of. I was more sporty though. I was a very, very good basketball player. That became part of my life, as you'll hear shortly. But I was more sport than academic. I did okay at school. I didn't do anything brilliant. But I had ambitions right when I knew quite early on, when I leave school, I'm going to join the military, and that's what I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so from 16, I left school. So this is back in 82 now.
Yeah.
I left school in 1982. I had a small gap before I joined the army, and on the 7th of September 1982, boom, off I went. Joined the Royal Army Medical Corps and stayed there for 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was my start of my life.
Yeah.
In the forces, with all sorts of travels, lots of promotions. I did really well, had a fantastic time.
I'm going to say you're talking very fondly about the army, because that's not everyone's experience, clearly, is it?
Not everyone, but it offers a lot. It offered me a lot. It offered me the opportunity to travel the world, meet some amazing people, go to some amazing places, go to some not so amazing places, like the Gulf War, like a couple of tours of Bosnia in the early 90s when it was, the Yugoslavia war.
Wow.
So all of those adventures, not great at the time, some of them, but then when you reflect on them, they're kind of life forming and life changing. And
Absolutely.
so that's what I did. 15 years in the military. So I was a medic, and my primary trade was a medic, combat medical technician, fixer and patcher up of people who needed fixing and patching up. I also had a specialist trade, and this is what led me on to do what I do now. My specialist trade within the Army Medical Corps was environmental health. So I became an environmental health technician.
Right.
Water hygiene, well, just like your EHO, basically.
Right.
Your local council environmental health officer. I did that in the army.
Right.
And I did it for 15 years.
So you kind of started off with the medical side of things,
Yeah.
and I mean, was that not in itself quite traumatic? Were you?
It was intense training.
Yeah.
Although I stayed as a medic, it's interesting that once you're in the medical corps, particularly if you're off on operations and things like that, like the Gulf, like Bosnia, even if you're not actually practicing as a medic, so if you're an environmental health guy, or you're a clinical measurement technician, or you're something else, you still wear a red cross. People go, medic.
Right.
So if there's something gone wrong, they're going to come knocking on your door. So you got to be ready. So you do need to maintain your medical skills. So that's that. We did that. You're always a medic first.
Yeah.
In the Royal Army Medical Corps, I happen to be a specialist in Army Health, environmental health technician, and that was my career in the military up until I left. I served for 15 years. I left in 1997.
Wow.
To then pursue this career. So. And the reason that they're inextricably linked is part of our training in the medical corps, towards the end of my service, the last 3 or 4 years really, we also became the Army's health and safety people.
Yeah.
And so we got trained and qualified in civilian qualifications for what I do now.
Yeah, it's interesting because you do hear that a lot about the Army.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my background's education. I used to be a teacher, and it's never sort of saddened me that people have gone to the army. We need people in the army, and it's a fantastic career. What's always concerned me, shall we say, is that I think a lot of people in certain areas of the country, a lot of young men, feel that is their only option.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shame. And I don't think, because I mean, to join the army, you need to be a certain type of person. I'm not. And I don't think that I would, that's no good to the army to get for everybody. To get the sort of person who's decided the army's not for them. Yeah. But what I have heard certainly is like sort of for people like you, and it is brilliant to hear people like yourself that are having that good experience and are getting skills and qualifications. Absolutely. That can then help them when they do make that transition back.
No question about it, and it offers that to everybody within the forces. It doesn't work for everybody.
I was just going to ask you about that because I mean, I'm sure you'll be no stranger to hearing about, we hear about sort of homeless veterans and things like that. Yeah. Possibly a slightly unfair question. How has it worked out well for you, but not other people? What's your view on that?
It's an interesting question. So. From my perspective, the reason it's worked out well for me is because I'm pretty much well motivated. I kind of know where I'm going, and that's always been the case.
Yeah.
So the military was a choice for me. It worked out for me. It was great for me. I had a fantastic time. Lots of downs. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's all roses. It's not. No. There are occasions it's absolutely horrific and it's horrible, and you wish you weren't where you were. But that's part of life's rich tapestry, and you deal with those kind of blows and roll with the punches, and you move on, sort of thing. So it worked out for me because I'm driven and motivated. And I kind of knew where I was going, to the point where when it came to the end of army. Bear in mind, I only stayed for 15 years, so my term would have been 22. So I chose to leave. It was my decision to say, you know what, I had another opportunity. I had a job to walk straight into. I left the army on the Friday, 17th of July 1997, and on the Monday, I started a new job in London, doing what I do now. So I won't say it was easy for me, but I'd kind of carved a path that made it easier for me. I want
Yeah.
to go back to what you said though, because you made a really, really valid point. So important, I think, to hone in on that a lot of people do leave the services, and they leave this structured environment
Yeah.
where you've got your mates, your team, your hierarchy. You know exactly where you are. You know when you're going to get fed, where you're going to be, and at what time you're going to be there, and
Yeah.
what you're going to be wearing. And people need that. Some people, they have to have that.
Yeah.
And then you leave the military for whatever reasons. It might be a disciplining matter. It might be just be the end of your time. You might have served 22 years in that environment, and that's all gone. And it's gone very, very quickly. It's taken away from you, like literally within a couple of months. You're like, and
Quite a culture shock.
It's massive.
I mean, people say the same thing about retirement to a degree. It's like,
Yeah,
all of a sudden you've got your routine, you work, and all of a sudden, and a lot of companies have introduced that phased retirement so you can kind of gradually get used to the additional time.
That's so true. There's a lot of, it's worth perhaps mentioning that for those ex-military, not just Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, whatever they might be, there is a massive network out there post-services. I'm heavily involved in one myself.
Right.
And there's various LinkedIn groups and charities who can be, people can be signposted if you need help with housing, post-traumatic stress, marriage problems, money problems. The help's there. Often it's people not knowing where to go, and a lot of people need help.
That's a shame, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And you mentioned the homelessness. It's a big issue. There's a lot of ex-forces on the streets of this country. It's frightening. It's
I'm a landlord myself. I mean, I don't house any, not just because they've not applied to being my properties, but certainly it's an issue that I take an interest in. It's an issue that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people highlight it for bad actors, bad faith actors do highlight it for their own agendas and things like that. But there is an issue there that needs highlighting. And I think it's interesting what you've just said, that there is the support there, but it's not, people aren't being connected. I mean, I wouldn't know about that because I'm not in the army, but it's just a shame that those dots aren't being joined up if the support's there.
It's getting better. There's a lot of groups out there, a lot of social media groups, a lot of charity groups. More importantly, at an NHS level, there's a link there where most, and I actually know people who are involved in this, as friends of mine are involved in this project, whereby across the UK, NHS and doctors, surgeons in particular, are on the lookout now, and they have been for a few years, for former serving members of Army, Navy or Air Force who are presenting with, it might be alcohol problems, it might be whatever type of issue. Yeah. And they know to signpost them. For example, alcohol problems, signpost them to Op Courage, the military alcohol dependency charity.
Yeah.
So they got all these signposts that they're getting more and more alert to now. So people, the help's there.
Well, so that's good news.
It's brilliant. Absolutely, yeah. The help is there.
So you left the army and you've gone straight away into a job, and you're down in London. So
a lot,
that's lots going on there. So and the job was again.
So my role now is it's quite varied actually. It's a bit. Sometimes I wake up and think, what have I got on today? So I get my main job. So the bit that pays my bills, if you like, is risk management, health and safety auditing. So high level auditing. I'm an auditor to. I don't know if I'm allowed to name the companies on here. I am allowed personally.
Yeah.
So I'm the independent auditor to Arriva buses on a national level. So whereas they have their own safety structure, system, and people.
Yeah.
I can go in, and I have done for many years, and I independently audit them. This is what I see. This is it. There's no axe to grind. I've got no other interest than to say what I see. So I audit Arriva, and that keeps me very busy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Busy. We're doing 50 of those per annum all over the UK, literally from Rhyl in North Wales down to Southend-on-Sea, crossing Liverpool where I was yesterday, and everywhere in between.
So lots of travel going on.
Quite a bit of travel, yeah. So that's. Are
you getting there by bus or?
No. I shouldn't have been getting past. No, London, I drive. everywhere. Sorry, London now go on the train. I'll
yeah.
take the transport, but everywhere else I tend to drive. Where I can, I'll use public transport. I like train travel. I like time on
Yeah.
the train.
If you can get on a good service, I think where it becomes much more difficult
Absolutely.
is in the more rural areas, and then you've got no option,
You
have
got
you,
to
with
have
the
your car.
best one in the world.
And often I need stuff with me as well.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the thing when
yeah.
they're putting all these rules and regulations and laws in place to try and reduce traffic, they don't think about
Yeah.
people carrying.
What you're gonna have with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's. I mean, when I travel with my job, if I'm traveling around either as a musician or
Yeah.
doing a punctuation show, I've got a PS. It's like I can't take that on the train.
You can't. No, exactly.
But so not always thought of. But so you're doing lots of travel.
Doing my audits.
And that job that you had in London though, that you went to, was that broadly similar as you?
Oh, so no, that's really different. Sorry, I did jump around there. So so in addition to my sort of bread and butter health and safety auditing, I do, like your good self from your previous employer, I do a lot of teaching. I have a passion for teaching. I love teaching, and the job I was doing down in central London, literally right underneath St Paul's Cathedral, actually, it was
Right.
brilliant on Cannon Street, a beautiful location. I was teaching. That was the seventh presentation that I'd done for that company. It's an organisation who look after real estate property. You know, all the arches where train stations, where you
Right.
get, like, you might have mechanics workshops or you might have a shop or a restaurant. My client, they manage that portfolio on a national scale. It's a huge scale. So they've got all of these people, hundreds of people on their teams, property surveyors who go out and interact with tenants and go and look at buildings, and they look at derelict buildings and
Yeah.
they refurbish buildings. That presents a lot of risk. Presents a lot of personal safety issues, from travelling on public transport or driving, to asbestos, to bird poo, to getting
Yeah.
attacked by the tenant's dog, to meeting your tenant who hasn't paid his rent, who's drunk and belligerent. So I've put together a training course. It's really good fun, but it's really serious at the same time.
Yeah.
On this is your job, and this is what could go wrong, and we bring in real case scenarios of things that have gone horrifically wrong with people, including the classic case being the Susie Lamplugh case from about 1986, the estate agent in London who just disappeared off the face of the earth,
Yeah.
doing a similar kind of thing. And we just talk all about the dangers, and then we focus in, so what are you going to do about it? And when we talk about risk,
Yeah.
situational awareness and risk prevention. So that's what that one was all about.
Yeah, and well, clearly from your LinkedIn profile, that's still something that you're doing, and it is something that one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, and I don't know if you agree with this, is when people just blithely say health and safety gone mad, without that sort of appreciation. It's like, well, if there is no health and safety regulations, then stuff is going to happen.
It does. It's an easy comment that people, you hear it. Oh, health and safety police, and there's a lot of famous people who.
Don't get me wrong. I can absolutely see it's irritating. It's not convenient.
Yeah. Well, this is true.
But then again, sort of a people's safety, and if it's a loved one, then you're going to have a slightly changed view on that.
Well, you make a really interesting point, because going back to what I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of work in agriculture and land estates and farming and that kind of stuff, and that's typically family units. You've got mum and dad and often children, and every year someone's son gets killed or daughter gets killed, often by a member of the family. There's been some real horrific cases not so long back, within the last year, where an uncle's ran over his brother's son because he was letting him ride on the tractor as they're in the farmyard. There's been some horrific ones. That's why safety's important.
I mean, you presumably may think differently given the nature of your job and what you do, but from my perspective as a parent, as an uncle, or friend, why would you not want to let a child have a go on a tractor or that kind of thing? And it's it's okay, but
it's getting that balance, and it's I think it's from my perspective, it's accepting or trying to get people to grasp the data, because there's data there. It's not someone saying, oh, we think safety might be a good idea. This is the data. So this data goes back many. This is the reason why. because these people have been killed, because these people now have asbestosis. That person no longer can see. That person's deaf has one arm. It's using the data, but still trying to put safety across in a way so it's not the big stick. You've got to get people to want to do safety, not.
I was going to say, because it's it's you. I mean, I've met people that work in health and safety before, and there's what's coming across from you, I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear, is like sort of a lot of people. I think there's a stereotype of a real sort of a Mirth Hoover, and you're not. I don't think you're coming across like that. No. But that must be something that you encounter, and people expecting that of you.
Yeah, so that is a very common perception of health and safety. You must do this because this law says that, and there's no. I don't think there's really a place for that kind of big stick approach to safety. Most sane thinking people will at some point accept a sound, logical argument for health and safety if it's presented correctly and it's backed up by facts and figures. And
I think that's it, as opposed to finger wagging.
Exactly. You got to do this because the law says so. Well, it doesn't wash.
It's never a good approach. And I think what is a really good example of that is, I don't know whether I should admit this, but the fact that I've been on a speed awareness course.
Oh, right, okay, good.
And most people I know have been on them. So, read into that what you will. But they are more pleasurable experiences, and it's the thought provoking. Yeah, and going back to what you've said, and I think it's interesting because what you'd spoken sort of quite early on in the interview, that one of the courses you're putting together was fun, and that's
how you got to put it out. People with safety, I think the magic with safety is like any message that you're trying to put across. People have to want to learn. They have to want to do whatever it is you want the outcome to be. You can't force people. So if we can engage them, put in some anecdotes, you've got to keep the gravity of the situation. That's got to remain the central focus. But it can be done, I think, in a way, and I know it can, because it's the way I go about apply my trade.
Yeah.
Get across to people, look, this is the really difficult, horrific potential outcome. However, look, we can prevent all that, because all we need to do is X, Y, and Z, and you can do this. And I always try and get people to tell me solutions to their issues.
Yeah.
So like the stuff we've been doing in London, or indeed stuff we do out on farms in the States, that kind of stuff. I always look at the issues that people have and try and engage the work. The people who are at risk often have some great solutions and great ideas that we can go, what a brilliant idea. Billy's just said we could, if we don't do that in the morning and we let Mark do it instead, we remove all. And often it's that local knowledge, people, they know what's going on. They know the real facts. You can have the best policies. And I see this so much, facts and policies and procedures at board level bearing no resemblance to what happens on the ground.
Yeah.
Absolutely chalk and cheese. So getting in with the people on the coalface, so important. Use them to tell you what really goes on.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, going back to the fun element, and I do wholeheartedly support that, because obviously, I mean, my business, I basically run the punctuation show, and it's you tell people that punctuation, and formerly as an English teacher, you'd say that to kids, it's like, you got that straight away. Oh God! But it's like, it's like going. It's like sort of real sort of larger than life. Yeah. Make them laugh, make them have fun, and I cannot but think, as a society, that's kind of the fun element seems to have been lost, and like, people want it is. It's I think it's crucial when we've got the mental health issues that we've got.
Yeah, massive, exactly. And in a topic like safety in particular. If you say health and safety to most people, it's like, oh God, here we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're kind of on an uphill struggle before
Yeah.
you start. So there has to be a different approach to that waggy finger.
Yeah, and that's it. And as I say, I mean, in my personal experience, like sort of the health and safety guy, that there's something to the stereotype, and that's, to be honest, when we were in initial contact, you know, I mean, you're incredibly polite, you're very articulate. I wasn't sure what to expect,
Right.
and then as I say, you come to my door, we shake hands, and it's like, you know, this is quite a bright, bubbly, gregarious person, and sort of debunking that stereotype, which I will be honest was a relief for me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Well, that's a relief to me as well. But you make such a great point, because that is the perception of health and safety, and I've always been aware of that.
Yeah.
And I've always gone out of my way just to be me, and not. I guess if you're a safety guy, just be yourself.
Yeah.
If you're the kind of safety guy who goes, no, go and get another job, because
Yeah.
you're not doing the safety world any good.
That's it. I'm not sure what kind of job that guy should get,
No, me
but no,
neither.
it's as I say, with the health, it is such a serious message. It needs to hit home, and you don't do that by. No, I mean, I think it's just part of being British. None of us like being told what to do.
Exactly.
So you're down in London. You've got what sounds like a really cracking job. I do want to ask you, because I know sort of around about that time, that sort of 19, house prices they'd not rocketed by then, had they? Did you purchase a property?
We're absolutely fine. We've never struggled property wise, and you know, that on that side of things. I'm not saying I'm a canny shrewd investor, but I've had luck along the way,
Right.
and we're always busy, and there's always plenty going on. So yeah, that side of things never an issue, to be honest.
Right, spot on. So so how did you get from London to kind of back in the northeast?
Well, it's an interesting one that we've moved around so much. Not just in the army days. I've lived in New Zealand, worked in New Zealand.
Whereabouts in New Zealand?
We were on the South Island in a little place called Ashburton. So that's about 45 minutes south of Christchurch. It's really spooky, actually.
Yeah.
If we got the time, I'll mention it very briefly. So when we went over there, I had to make this very, very long story very, very short. So in a nutshell, I used to run a different business, and I sold it. So at the back end of 2010, I didn't have a business and I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
I was in between stuff. And at that precise moment, back end of 2010, my old mate, Adrian Humphreys, ex-army guy, who had moved to New Zealand when he left the forces, we happened to be having a chat. And he said, what are you going to do now then? And I said, I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. He goes, well, why didn't you come to New Zealand? He goes, I'm moving very shortly. I've got a new job. He was at Ashburn at the council.
Yeah.
He was moving to a new position in Nelson at the top of the South Island. He goes, I'll get you an interview if you like. Oh, you do that, get me an interview. He got me an interview. I got the job. And then, so at the back end of 2010, we'd been told, this is me and my wife, Sarah, if the job's yours, regulatory manager, Ashburton District Council, South Island, New Zealand, but you must get all your police checks and your medicals squared away and be in position by April of 2011. Easy. What could go wrong there, I thought. Fast forward to February 2011. Remember that massive earthquake that crunched New Zealand 40 minutes north of where we're about to go and live?
Right.
Oh my God. Anyway, we still went, and it turned out great. We had a lovely 3 years working and living in New Zealand, which is going back to your question about moving around.
Yeah.
And we did it. So we came home and did other stuff, and then we moved to France and we did stuff. And
wow, so you have.
So we've travelled quite a bit, and but we're now firmly settled, doing what we do.
Where are you from originally?
Nottingham.
Right.
My
okay.
hometown. So born and bred Nottingham. Stayed there till 16.
Yeah.
Till I joined the army, and then from then it's literally been
bit of a whirlwind, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Oh, it really has.
What's made you settle in the? I'm assuming you settled now.
My wife.
Right.
Yeah. So my wife was born and bred. I think she was born somewhere in the West End of Newcastle. They were brought up near the coast. That's our location.
Right.
That's us now.
So that's it. So often the case where sort of the men sort of go where the women
are
feeling at home.
Yeah. And I'm gonna love it. I love it up here. And of course, with family's grown, we've got two boys now, 15 and 11. And there's me and my wife, and yeah, we're just doing what we're doing, and having a good crack along the way. To be honest,
Is your wife a part of the business, or?
She was originally, and she used to help out quite a lot on the admin and
Yeah.
do that kind of stuff, but not so much now. She tinkers around, helps out a little bit, but she's got her own stuff going on,
Yeah.
so pretty much,
It's often the way, isn't it? People are juggling
yeah.
multiple projects and
It's so much going on, and so what I try and do now is I try and outsource stuff that I can't do, get help
yeah.
on the admin and the phone side of it, and this side of it and the IT side of it, and accountancy and all that. I can't do all that. I don't want to
Yeah.
do all that. I get help in to do that. It just frees me up to do what I do.
Yeah.
Going out doing my health and safety stuff and teaching,
Yeah.
it's great. It's fascinating that you're an ex-teacher as well, because that is the love of my life. I
Yeah.
did a lot of it in the forces. I was very lucky during my stint in the medical corps to spend 2 full tours at our training depot. So I had a real privilege of teaching all the young kids coming up and coming through their at the start of their army health journey, environmental health journey. So leading the instructing team for that. So teaching is what I loved. I love teaching.
Yes. I mean, did the army give you like a formal qualification for teaching?
There was a couple. I'm not sure it's anything that would stand up now, and it's certainly something I've never had to rely on ever. Yeah. There were a few there were like military instructor courses, but I'm not sure there's stand up to much in history. But my on the teaching side, I don't know if it's worth mentioning it. I actually do have a school, so I've got an online school.
All right.
Yeah, and on that school, and it's a proper online.
When did you start that?
About 2.5 years ago.
Right, so a relatively new project. Then.
Yeah, and to say the reason I started it, I got asked a question about farm health and safety training.
Yeah.
Not around about the COVID time, and the question was to do with online training and what's available. And I wasn't sure. I said I'll find out, and I did a bit of research, and I started looking around. So I'm looking for an online farm type health and safety course that can be done online. There's nothing good out there. There was stuff out there,
yeah,
but nothing. Pretty boring, to be honest. I found I think I found 3 in the end, and I did them myself. I paid my money.
Yeah.
And almost to the letter, it was you pay money and then read lots of PowerPoint slides on the screen. And I thought I can just read a book and get the same info. I could watch a video on YouTube. Yeah. So I thought that's what I did. So I developed 2, and this is where a contact of yours comes in as well, Owen Waitman.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm gonna need to do an online farm course, but it needs to be different.
Yes.
And so I worked with Owen, and we went to a farm not a million miles away from here, and Owen worked his magic, and we made a 3D interactive farm. So when people come onto my course, there's no there is PowerPoint. Sorry, there is some, but I'm live talking, just like it's like one-to-one kind of training, rather than having just people read slides. So people work their way through the course, loads of downloads and there's all sorts of stuff in there. And then all of a sudden they get to this section and it says, "Welcome to the interactive farm," and you click your button and you're in the farm. And you're in Owen's magic farm, and you can get right up close and personal with the sheep and the pigs and look at stuff and zoom in and move. It's really good.
Because I think Owen's got a cloud platform for that, has it? Is that what you're using to essentially host the course?
It's hosted on the platform's called Thinkific, a giant global Canadian teaching establishment. One of the world's leading platforms for learning.
Yeah, I'm going to say there's a number out there. No, Kajabi. I think that's the.
Think Kajabi, that kind of thing.
Thinkific, it's another alternative to
that kind of stuff. Yeah. So Thinkific's one of those.
Just out of curiosity, what made you choose that platform as opposed to Kajabi, which I think is probably I suspect that will probably come up before Thinkific in Google.
It's a good question actually. When I researched it, because I didn't know which one to go for. I'd spoken to a couple of people. I have a friend of mine who's also got online courses. He doesn't use Thinkific. Funny enough, he was using Kajabi. He doesn't now, as it happens. But
it's not the cheapest, I don't think.
No, it's not. Anyway, so I ended up with looking around, and I looked at Kajabi, Udemy. I actually do have courses on Udemy, and then I came across Thinkific. I watched a number of YouTube videos, and I watched a lot of pros and cons. Thinkific was ticking all the boxes, and the main reason was the ease of use. So I didn't have to be a tech-minded, code writing
Yeah.
smarty pants. I could just move things around and drag and drop. So I gave it a go. And it gave me a free plan. I could trial it for nothing,
Right.
with all the most of the bells and whistles for free. So I did that. I put a course on there. I thought, oh, this is really good. And then I learned more than inside Thinkific on how to make it a bit better, how to upgrade my landing pages, make it look smarter, really, more
Yeah.
professional, to the point where it started to get traction. I put another course on there and another course on there. And then I moved up the plans. I'm on a fairly chunky plan now,
Yeah.
but it's an investment and it pays for itself many, many times over.
Right.
And it's really
Which
good.
is, that's the ideal,
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. Yeah.
So how do you promote it? Are you using social media for that? Are you just
you-
like your normal, your own existing network?
Pretty much LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, to be honest with you.
Are you using paid ads or is it just organic?
Organic stuff. If you, particularly on rural crime,
Yeah.
it's a very niche area. It's really niche.
It seems it, as I say, it's like, so when I was looking at your profile, when I think you got in touch through Owen, and you, I think that's the key thing. You've clearly found a niche business that really works for you.
It does, and the farming one was slightly different. There's a lot of people working in safety and farming, but a lot of them are those people we were talking about earlier, and a lot of them have, not all, there's some brilliant stuff going on out there, and frankly, some people doing a lot better and a lot cleverer than I can do. But I think I found my place. I think I found my part of the pecking order of not quirky, different, bit of a fun element to it, a little bit. Oh, that's all right. Oh yeah, it's safety, but you know what? It was all right. He was telling us a joke about this, that, and the other, and so a bit of a different slant on it, but still offering it via technology as well.
What I love about what you've got going on is, I mean, it's health and safety, so it's kind of, in terms of your demand, people do need it.
Absolutely.
There's that, you can't get by without it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can try, but if you fall foul of the law, expect a prison term.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you've, I suppose, because you did say earlier on, you don't really see that there's a place for the stick. I think the stick is kind of inherently built in with health and safety. It's like, if you don't do it, there are consequences, very serious consequences.
That's a very important point, actually, Barry. And people need to know those consequences, and it needs to be very clearly planted as a seed, but they're not to be the focus. So now we know what the outcomes could be. So what are we going to do? So we're not part of that outcome. You mentioned, how do I promote my courses? Actually, I think it's something that's really important, worth mentioning here. So I do use LinkedIn predominantly. Yeah. And I've got a couple of YouTube channels, that kind of stuff, but they're very much in their infancy, but they're starting to gather traction a little bit. Not earth shattering, but it will. I know that's a long term project. That will take time. So this was my dilemma, directly relating to what you said. So my audience, whether it's farm safety or rural crime, is really a farmer. Yeah. Or someone like a farmer, a rural business. Up to, on a bigger scale, landowners and that kind of stuff, and castles, but predominantly it's farmers. Farmers don't spend money. Farmers don't like health and safety, and farmers don't like people like me knocking on the door saying, guess what, I know you don't like safety and spending money, but do you want to buy some health and safety? It doesn't work. No. So that, again, I had to think differently. I'm not going to sell any courses by asking a farmer to buy them, not in a million years. So I adopted a different approach. So I developed my training courses to help more than just the farmer. So the people who buy my training courses aren't the farmers. Farmers get them for nothing. Their insurance brokers buy them. Right. So I'm partnered with a number of insurance brokers, solicitors, land agents, people who already work with the farming community. They know them and they trust them, more importantly. And these organisations it's in their interest for that farmer to be safe. So if I'm the insurance broker, for example, and Farmer Giles is my client, probably the wrong one to use. Farmer Jones is my client. Well, if Farmer Jones gets all his stuff nicked, or some of his workers get injured,
then it's going to cost.
we're going to pay.
Yeah.
You know, and someone's been hurt, and it's horrific. All those things you and I were talking about earlier. So how about if I'm the insurance broker, why don't I buy a chunk of Richard Wade's training courses at whatever price and give them to my customer?
Yeah.
So that way I'm a better broker. I'm caring for my customer benefits.
Yeah.
And
it's the investment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a win-win-win situation.
Yeah,
It really
absolutely,
is.
yeah.
And so that's my business model, and that's how we work, basically, in partnership and collaboration, not trying to knock farmers down and beat them with a stick with health and safety written on the side of it.
A proper solution, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's a, quite an ingenious one in a way. But no, fascinating. So I mean, in terms of earlier on with your projects and courses, is that what we've just covered there?
Mostly the rural crime one's taken a bit of a twist, because it's kind of gone international now. So the farm safety product that's been out there 2.5 years.
Yeah.
That's gone well. It's sold through brokers. I do get a number of funny enough, most of my random customers are from Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
So I don't advertise in Australia or New Zealand or England, come to that matter. But again, I'm thinking it's LinkedIn. But that seems to be the growth there. With the rural and that course, the farm courses, although it's still live, people are doing it. In the background, it's having a facelift, it's having a makeover, new graphics. I've invested in a better online type studio where I can record cleverer and smarter.
Right.
I want the user experience is going to be a lot slicker and more engaging, basically.
Yeah.
It's going to be really, really kind of studio level production, although it's me doing it effectively. Yeah. So that's
are you using AI solutions for that?
Well, it's within. I'm just getting into AI.
Yeah.
So AI, that's a kind of a randomly spooky question, because it's something I've really just got into, and you and I haven't discussed this before at all. So
no.
What I've learned recently is when I'm working all the automations for my courses, AI can help massively there. So within Zapier, there's some wonderful AI solutions, and what I've learned is it links Thinkific to various other things that I use. And it says, so what do you want to do, Richard? And I'd say, I want Johnny to get this. Good. And it presents me with the workflow.
Yeah.
It saved me a ton of time. It's been absolutely fantastic. So AI is very much on my agenda when I get a bit more time to really start to research that. So the real crime's changing direction as well. It's a brand new course. It's had a massive makeover, and it's being test driven as we speak by 4 people around the world. I've got a guy in England who's a former military policeman who's now a high level security guy, works in that kind of area.
Yeah.
I've then got a guy in New Zealand doing it, who's my mate who got me the job.
I'm going to say prior
contact
contact there.
But he's in that. He works in regulatory compliance in New Zealand. And then I've got a guy in Australia, New South Wales University, a rural criminologist researcher who's also test driving the course.
Yeah.
And then we've got someone from Durham University who's about to test drive the course, and she's also a criminologist, researcher, lecturer. So I've got these wonderful brains that far exceed the brain power that I possess, who are going to give me their honest and critical thinking on what I've produced.
Yeah.
I know it's going to involve a lot of change. I know I'm going to have to rejig and do, and that's what I'm hoping will be the case. And then very, very soon, within the next 2 weeks, the brand new rural crime course will be launched. And
will you be following that same format?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it works.
It does. It works. Up onto Thinkific, through brokers, through solicitors, through land agents, and have it open,
Yeah.
But it's a big traction. Real crime in the groups I'm in currently on LinkedIn. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's such a problem for the rural communities. It is frightening what's going on.
It's really. I know a few people on farms, and it's there's I suppose they're a target it's there's a perception that they're all doing well with the land and things like that. But
they're easy pickings. A lot of them are easy pickings because unless they've had a problem or they know someone who's had a problem, tends to be, I'm all right. And then the next day you wake up and there's no GPS tracking unit on your tractor, so you can't work in the field that day. And the business implications are pretty huge.
Yeah, that's it.
Frightening. And what people miss a lot with real crime is it's not amateurs. It's highly organised.
Yeah.
Criminal gangs. This is organised crime gangs.
Yeah.
Operating globally. So yeah.
No, that's it. So in terms of the future then, where do you see things going for you?
Well, I see more and more training actually. So I've got plans afoot. Again, what these last couple of years have taught me with the farm training, the crime training, and my love of training. So I still do my face-to-face stuff.
Yeah.
On situational awareness, personal security, travel safety, that kind of stuff. I think differently presented training.
Yeah.
That's either face-to-face or online or a hybrid. So the project that I've just finished yesterday, not the day before in London, that was course number 7 of that face-to-face.
Yeah.
And we did hundreds of people, and we did it live to the audience in Cannon Street.
Yeah.
But we were streaming to their offices in America and Canada and all over at the same time. And that presentation, that course, by Christmas will be an online course as well,
right,
for that organisation. So I think that mixture of training, the other beauty about Thinkific is the ability to host live webinars in your training courses.
Right.
So once you've got your audience and they're engaged and they're interested, we're going to do this with one of my insurance companies, who I won't name, in the non too distant. They bought into the farm safety concept. Lots of their farm clients get it for free.
Yeah.
And we're going to run a seminar, and then we're going to do regular ones on. We might say, right, tractor safety tomorrow, silage safety tomorrow, or fertilizer, or working with cows. So we're going to keep them engaged, not just do our course. It's join this. We're going to have a community.
Build a community.
That's the plan.
It is fascinating, as say, I mean, through this podcast, through my own sort of business journeys and researching on ways forward, you just sound to be doing everything right.
That's right.
And as I say, you've certainly, I didn't know what to expect, and I've been pleasantly surprised. I found this conversation informative. I think anyone watching is going to get a huge amount from it. I wish you well in everything that you do moving forward, Richard, and thank you very much for coming on.
Barry, thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.